Streng geheim. The world is locked in a Cold War between three superpowers: the Germans, Americans, and the Japanese. Deep in the German sphere lays the Ordensstadt of Burgundy. Led by Himmler, Burgundy is also run by three other legions. We'll be covering one of them, with that being the Charlemagne Legion. The Charlemagne Legion was a real thing that made up of French SS volunteers, with them getting the name Charlemagne from the old king called Charlemagne. In our timeline, there were 7,000 members, and the Legion was also known as the 33rd Waffen Grenadier Division, with the members from France joining mainly to fight Bolshevism and only participated in the Eastern Front. In TNO, the Charlemagne, Walloon, and Langemarck legions, along with Himmler, are the heads of Burgundy. Burgundy's goal is to keep all the legions under control or to eradicate them, especially the most loyal one, the Walloons. There are two ways to make the SS Charlemagne independent. The main one is if Burgundy fails to keep the legions loyal. Charlemagne is reluctant to declare independence, so it almost always rebels after the other two factions rebel. The Charlemagne Legion will rename to the Nouvelle État Français, New French State in English, when it becomes independent. The flag is a mix of a French flag and the Charlemagne SS shield. The capital is normally Pickenstadt when first rebelling. If Burgundy is defeated, the three legions will all invade each other. After that, the new French state has basically concluded all content for itself. You can't play as the new French state unless you tag them. The second way to create the new French state is by making Heydrich win the German Civil War. When this is done, Burgundy will break into many pieces, including the new French state. The new French state will always rejoin Burgundy. However, if Heydrich defeats Himmler in the Second German Civil War, then the new French state will return and will invade France, a conflict which is almost always won by the new French state. By the way, although it's nearly impossible, if Goering goes for Burgundy last, and the new French state is in control of Burgundy, if the new French state somehow defeats Germany, then it could commit a whole world conquest. Anyhow, let's look into the leaders and domestics of the new French state. Originally, the leader of the new French state was Paul Tourvieres. However, that has changed into Christian de la Mazière. Tourvieres was a war criminal in our timeline, while La Mazière was a low-ranking member of the Charlemagne Legion. He then became a journalist after World War II. In TNO, he is the leader of the Charlemagne Legion. After the Burgundian crisis and the legions fighting each other, the new French state's capital will be Brussels. They do not have any nukes, whether Burgundy did or not. The ideology is normally ultra-nationalist. When the ideology switches to the Burgundian system, the leader changes to a faceless Marcus Roberts, and the name of the new French state changes to SS Ordensstadt Picardy. Marcus Roberts is a fictional man. When the new French state becomes fascist, nothing changes. Any other ideology is the Republic of Picardy, with each ideology having a different leader. Here are some examples. The liberal leader is Peter White, the conservative is Bob Brown, and the authoritarian is Lucas Walker, with all being faceless and fictional. The new French state has 35 divisions, and although it has no nukes, building nuclear reactors is faster for the state. So, there's three more things to cover: the policies, generals, and the possibility of a united France. Firstly, the policies of a new French state include the following: a one-party system, state-sponsored atheism, illegal trade unions, closed borders, outlawed public meals, and finally voting, the press, and refugees are banned, and society is overall an awful and racist one. The commanders are all real and have a profile. John de Vogel, I'm sorry for pronunciation, who actually died in 1950, was in Charlemagne Legion, but somehow lived 17 years longer in the TNO world. The next one is Henry Fleet, who also fought in the Legion. He died in 2002. All other generals have the same story with fighting with Charlemagne Legion. Finally, the French territories conquered by Burgundy is only claimed by France. The part of France controlled by Burgundy in the beginning of the game is claimed by both France and the dead Burgundy. Belgium is only claimed by Burgundy. If France invaded Brittany, and if you have a mod which allows you to return/release territories, it is possible for you to return the territories to France and reunite France, in a sort of good ending for the tortured French. Oh, and by the way, there is a submod based on the Burgundian legions on the description. There's the link to their Discord and an interesting page giving the Charlemagne legion some content and many more features. However, since the video is way too short, I'm going to talk about the resistance movements outside of Burgundy in the actual part of mainland France, which is the French resistance. After World War II, the French were destroyed with all their colonies being taken away from them, besides from Algeria. However, that's debatable, as a majority of Algeria is de facto controlled by Spanish and Italian forces. After the 50s and the creation of the Burgundian state, the French continued their downward spiral, with their capital being divided into two. But resistance remains. In Burgundy lays the ultra-nationalist French Legion, which we covered. In Africa there's Free France in the Ivory Coast, and Algeria has a faction of French revolutionaries. We won't be talking about them right now, or in this video, but instead we'll cover the French forces of the interior, La Resistance in mainland France. Resistance is a socialist group and there's three ways of getting them into power. The major enemy of resistance is the OAS, which was a terrorist group against Algerian forces in our timeline. Anyhow, we'll look into the ways the French resistance can free themselves, what the leaders are, and what ideologies they have. Firstly, the peaceful way of gaining resistance control. This can happen no matter what, as long as France is still a thing. Basically, the French state goes authoritarian democratic with a leader, Antoine Pinay, once again, sorry for the pronunciation, leading a wave of democracy. Although this is technically not the resistance, the leader is believed to have ties with resistance. Pierre Sidos, a Germophile in the French state who develops an anti-resistance force, will always try to combat the resistance, and is an active supporter of the OAS. Secondly, the intervention method. The OFN can have the option to invade France only if France is part of a German faction. They can A. allow Free France to take control of France, or B. allow a democratic France to run it, and thus resistance reaches its goal. I've never achieved this method, but I have seen others reach it. Finally, the proper way, which is the actual resistance, directly taking power and creating a socialist France. Basically, Speer needs to win the German Civil War, and he has the option to support France invading Brittany. That is only if Brittany isn't on the German side, and that France sided with Germany in the Great Game, which is a series of the Italians and Germans trying to secure the nations between them, including the French state. If Brittany defeats France, a truce is signed and resistance factions will rise up and face the OAS. The flag of resistance is the Free French flag with the golden leaves around the Cross of Liberty. The leader is Henry Curiel, which is seen as a terrorist for the government, while for the locals he's seen as a hero and a fighter for freedom. When the French Civil War starts, an event occurs which explains the situation in France and the failure to eliminate Brittany. There are 4 libertarian socialist divisions belonging to resistance, and they are situated in La Rochelle. The same as with the AOS, but they are based in Marseille, with the rest of the failed French state controlling the rest. Before the Civil War, the OAS is a national spirit for France. Its flag is an ordinary black and with a white OAS. The Civil War normally starts in between 1967 and 1970, and they start off with 5 divisions. These are the following generals: Henry Curiel, who is the leader of the rebels; Francis Johnson, who in our timeline escaped to Spain until joining resistance in 1943 and fighting in Algeria after the war. Then there's finally Valéry Giscard d'Estaing. Once again, sorry for the pronunciations, I can't really speak French that well. Who was born in French-occupied Germany in 1926. and was the president of France in the late 70s. Anyhow, let's look into the ideologies. All leaders change to fictional faceless people when the ideology changes. Everything stays the same besides the name of the nation. Socialist and communist France is called the French Resistance. All other ideologies give a name French Republic, besides the Burgundian system, which has no name at all. By the way, the Resistance's ID is FRD. Some of its policies include the following: a multi-party system, free press, and open worker and trade unions. Well, that's all there is to French resistance. The largest extent they can ordinarily be is the regular French borders, but with all of Algeria. However, the other two methods allow France to contain Burgundy, Brittany, Algeria, and the Ivory Coast. Well, that's the end of the video, so I hope you enjoyed it. For the sake of a good ending and a free united France, plus this video is quite short, here's the French resistance trying its best to defeat Burgundy. This was made by my good friend Eddie, whose Discord and YouTube can be found in the description below.